Hello and welcome to the Ooze.tv. My name is Spencer Burke, your host for ThinkFwd. We're together here with Bruce Deel at the City of Refuge. You're the founder and executive director. We're here in the kitchen, which is hustling and bustling for your annual gathering, and you've got quite an operation happening. A number of things. Something many people may have heard of is the 180-degree cafe and your culinary training program.
Yeah, the 180-degree kitchen, obviously a little play on words there. 180 degrees, we want to take 18 to 25-year-old students that have experienced some level of crisis in their life and help them turn around. And one of the ways we do that is by giving them instruction in culinary skills. And in association with that, we talk about life skills as well. So they're learning how to cook and do dessert prep and all the kind of things that have to happen, but we're also learning how to show up on time and look right and speak appropriately to your partner on the service line, and just dealing with all those issues that young men and women might have. So it's literally a turn your life around, and one of the ways we do that is through training them how to cook.
Yeah. And now you're not an island in of yourself alone. There's some placement sometimes. Does that happen?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, our goal was at the end of that 12-week culinary training program that we help them with the chefs that we have a relationship with around town get a job. And we don't want it just to be a job. We actually hope that it turns into a career. So we hope they become a line chef or, you know, a pastry chef or whatever the case may be, so that they can see that it's not just about the immediate, but it's about the rest of their life.
Yeah. Now, they're not just practicing here. These meals are used for a specific purpose as well.
Yeah, one of the cool things about the culinary program is they're learning how to cook while they're feeding 19,000 folks a month that are in crisis. So that includes the homeless and the folks that live on campus. So they're actually doing on-the-job training.
Yeah.
So we open up about 200 homeless folks come in every Tuesday and Thursday, get a hot sit-down meal. We have a speaker dealing with everything from job placement to HIV to addiction recovery, a little devotion, and then we just engage them. So we have 25 volunteers in and just sit at the table and have conversation. I've got guys that are crack addicts or alcoholics I've been feeding for 10 years, and some folks say, well, don't you think it's time to stop investing in them? And I go, well, obviously the relationship's not strong enough yet.
Exactly.
You know?
Well, and then you also have some single moms staying here, other families staying here, and there's the meal integration there. It's a holistic approach. You're not just doing one program.
Well, yeah, if it relates to benevolent care, we're probably doing it. So that's food, clothing, shelter, rehab, medical assistance, mental health, and the food is one of those keys. You know, it's our, you know, when I read scripture and look at what Jesus did, a lot of that evolved around food. Yeah. And so he sat down at the fire and he did all this stuff with food, and so it's just a place to engage folks. So the kitchen is a hub in many ways of everything we do.
Yeah.
We'll be building a 16,000 square foot medical clinic that'll provide medical services for the uninsured and the homeless. Yeah. It'll have 3 surgical units attached to it. And we'll actually do surgery a week at a time, 3 times out of the year. Yeah. Yeah. And we'll have a 20-bed respite care center for those coming out of the hospital because they're not insured. Yeah. We'll still be able to administer their meds and monitor their vitals and those kind of things. And then a dental and orthodontic clinic will be attached to that as well.
Any words of wisdom, ideas, hopes?
Well, 12 years ago, I just came downtown Atlanta to close a little church, actually on a temporary assignment. And we'd been there 5 or 6 weeks, and a little prostitute walked in and asked if we could help her get her life in order. And so we did. And so the next week, she came back and brought one of her paying customers, actually. And he wanted to know if we could get his life in order. And we did. So all of a sudden, I looked at my wife and go, you know, I think maybe we've been conned by God. Yeah. And we're supposed to do this. So it started with one little girl in crisis. Out of that, we started developing this after-school program for kids, which led us to their mothers, which led us to Auntie and Granny. And so it's just built from there. So, you know, 12 years later, it's a pretty big organization, but that was a lot of work and a lot of days. And so folks who show up here get a little bit overwhelmed, and I go, no, just start with one person or one project and see where it goes from there.
And you know, it's almost counterintuitive. Rather than starting with a business plan, you just kind of came in and what's there? The people who are there that God brings to you.
Well, it is because there was no plan, Spencer. Yeah. That's the deal, was I was there to close and sell. Yeah. And so there was a plan. It was just the wrong plan, right? Yeah. So we were there to close and sell. God obviously had a bigger plan. And so that once we embraced the plan that had been established for us, versus working the plan we had established for ourselves, we started to see some really cool stuff happening.
Yeah. And now the other part is you're involved in this. You're right in the work with it. So sometimes people come in and they try to do something versus a life integration. So like, this comes from part of your passion, your heart, it feels like. Yeah.
Well, you know, what happened was once we decided to take on ownership of that little church and develop the nonprofit to go with it, my wife and $5 we actually moved in that center. Mm-hmm. And so we lived there for 6 years, and so we've got every kind of horror story and stuff you can tell. But the cool thing was we got to live it every single day. So for us, the experience was we didn't leave our place of security to go to our place of life change. We actually lived in our place of life change, and what happened was while we were able to help change some other folks' lives, it actually changed our lives as well.
That's so important. And then there's other people living here too, creating life change. And it's not just, I think it's 120 days or so, people get together and develop and train and work. So there's safety, but also a strong energy to get people out.
Oh, absolutely. Going. Yeah, absolutely. We started Eden Village December in 2008, and that's 40 housing units for mothers that have been homeless and their children. So we have 40 moms and 92 kids living there today, 132 residents. Then we have another single women's center with 100. So we have 232 residents on campus that are in transition. They're moving from the margin to the middle, as we say. And so, but we're pushing them that we're not just another place you settle down and live in your crisis. We're giving you the tools and the things you need in order to move to point B. And so it is a 120-day program with a lot of things we have lined up after that, but it's this thing of restoring their dignity but giving them responsibility to move forward. So a mom moves in that's been homeless with her children, and we provide everything she needs. So if she wants to move from a place of brokenness to a place of wholeness, we give it to her. Mm-hmm. So she gets all her meals in our kitchen. Mm-hmm. We have 3 daycare centers on site, take care of our children. We provide after-school homework help and tutoring for those same school-age children. We have 4 full-time caseworkers on campus that deal with everything from addiction to mental health issues to SSI to DFACS to child support. They go through a 30-day vocational training program with assistance with job placement. So the single women's center set up, they don't get their own individual room, they get an individual pod. They all have chore lists on the wall. Everybody has responsibilities. We spend very little on maintenance or janitorial because they do it. Exactly. It's part of being here.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So it's so we have 100 beds for single women without children, and we're at 100% capacity all the time here as well. What we do is Steve, my director of Compassion Atlanta, solicits goods and products from all over the country. And we share that with 55 other agencies in Atlanta that do our kind of ministry. And based on the reports they turn in, we assist about 35,000 folks a month through the Compassion Atlanta Distribution Center. It was really cool. What was it, 4 years ago now that we were one of the main sources in Atlanta for Hurricane Katrina. And had over 3,500 families come through and receive products from us. And then here in Atlanta, of course, we just recently had the floods. And we were able to have 3 semi-loads worth of goods and products distributed to the flood victims and work with them as well. Our next big project's in this empty warehouse space next to us, 25 2-bedroom apartments for the moms and children graduating from the program. They'll actually be able to move in where they'll become independent living, so they'll pay rent on a sliding scale, utilities, take care of their own food service, but all the supportive services we offer will still be available to them.
Sure.
So they can live there another 12 months, so it stands to reason that if you've been homeless however long, a year, 5, 10, if you can stay in a safe environment for 16 months versus 4, the success rates increase dramatically. One cool little story quickly is Vanessa, been homeless for years, lost her children, alcoholic, a little bit of a mental health issue. But once we got her off the street, she accepted Christ, we moved her into a home, and so she volunteers every day. She's on disability, she can't work. She just comes over and makes sandwiches. She just sits at the table, makes sandwiches. And she happens to be different color than me, she happens to have a different background than me, but she loves me, she calls me Daddy. And so every day when she sees me the first time, she goes, "Hey," and I go, "Hey," and we just move on. And so I was touring a group of guys through not long ago, and Vanessa's sitting over there, and she yells, "Hey!" And they all looked, and I said, "Hey," and I moved on, and she said, "Hey!" It was a double hey day, which doesn't happen. So I stopped and said, "What's up?" And she said, "Not you, them." And so they all looked at her, and this statement drives me, Spencer. This is what makes my life worthwhile. She pointed at me, and she said, "Y'all see that man right there? They said, yes, ma'am. She said, that man right there saved my life. And she put her head down. She made another sandwich.
I can't wait to see in the next 12 years what's going to be happening.
That's a little. I'm not quite ready to think about that right now.
Right.
Figure out today.
We'll celebrate today. Looking forward. Thanks so much for sharing with us today.
Sure. Glad to do it.
Okay.
All right.